This segment of Naperville Sports Weekly is brought to you by the Daily Herald.
Welcome to Neuqua Valley High School, here with Mick Ruettiger, the Dean and longtime wrestling coach. Thanks for joining me today.
You're welcome, Kevin. I feel welcome to be here.
Long career, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I want to get to first this past season, because a lot of success, and we'll have two of the wrestlers on in a bit, but a lot of individual success,
Yeah, we actually had, if I'm remembering this right, we had 6 kids that had 20 plus wins up to 30, and that's been a situation that we always had for a while, and then we kind of backed off a little bit on that last couple of years. But this group of seniors that started out as sophomore varsity wrestlers, they really developed and became a strong part of our program. And then along with those guys, we did have some injuries this year that kind of knocked out some of our seniors, but at the same time, we developed 7 sophomores at the varsity level this year, and they wrestled all year long, and then with 1 freshman, and along with 2 juniors and 4 seniors. So we had a fairly young team, and I knew that we were going to struggle and maybe getting that 8th or 9th win of a dual meet out of 14 matches because of the youth we had. But at the same time, we were very competitive.
Yeah.
We took some teams down to the last couple matches, many teams, and it was just, we were 8-11 this year overall, but at the same time, we usually, this is like, you're saying this because, you want to rationalize it.
Yeah.
But really, if we could have been just as easily 14 and 5,
right.
Whatever it is.
One match going one way or the other.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, you've been coaching a while, so the ebb and flow of a wrestling program, I'm sure you've seen.
Yes.
Developing wrestlers has to be a difficult process, because you're not just teaching skill, but you're also waiting for bodies to develop and for them to kind of come into their own physique. Is that what you've seen?
What you see right now, and even back in when I started coaching late 70s, there were kids. The repetition of wrestling is the key to the sport. It's a highly technical sport. You're just not brawling and being a bruiser out there, even though you do that, but you have to know how to do that. And I think as I've developed myself as a coach through the years, as well as the wrestlers, the wrestling really stays the same as far as the fundamentals, but there's subtle things that happen every 5 or 6 years that you have to adjust to in order to be competitive.
Yeah.
Because people find out how to defend an offensive movement, scoring movement that will be good for 2 or 3 years, and then people start defending it if they try to. And it's a matter of the technical side of wrestling. People don't realize how much it is until you actually step on a mat and try to wrestle. And the bodies that our kids develop are like, it's like a cross training sport, because you're using every possible muscle in your body for, not only 6 minutes on a live match, but when you go in a wrestling room and practice, it's a lot of stress on your body over and over again for 1.5 hours, 2 hours, and then you see these kids, they're like skinny like that coming in, and they're big like this, leaving, and they feel pretty good about themselves. But at the same time, I think that one thing that wrestling does, you can fight for a little piece of mat for 2 or 3 weeks, and when you finally get that, you really feel good about making that development. And when I say a little piece of mat, it could be you're wrestling one of your partners, and you just can't take them down. I mean, It's just a matter of, God, when am I going to take this guy down? Or you're wrestling when you're on the varsity level for 3 or 4 years, you get rivalries. And you see kids throughout especially in this area, and sometimes those rivalries become 3 or 4 or 5, 6 matches over the course of a career, and it could be a battle. Sometimes it's you're just looking to that guy's looking to knock you down because he can't beat you, or vice versa. But so that there's a it's a matter of when you look back on all these things that the opportunities you have as a wrestling coach to put life the reality of life into the wrestling room, it's if you take care of yourself, you can take care of other people. But if you can't take care of yourself, you're gonna have a tough time being able to make it, not only in the wrestling but in your career. So, we try to preach that, and as long as you're able to understand that you're not the only person in that room that people are focused on, even though it's a much individualized sport than most. It's not gonna say it's a brutal sport, but sometimes it seems like it's brutal. I mean, because you're trying to beat the other guy up, and in a technical, sound way. So you can punish people. There's no people when you're wrestling. People don't look to hurt anybody as much as they want to. They're not looking to do that, because that's not the object of the sport. The sport is to be dominant over somebody else.
Yeah.
For a certain amount of times in order to get to whatever your goals are.
It seems like you've obviously thought about this for a while. The evolution of your coaching style, have you felt like it has changed over the period of your coaching career?
My philosophy stays the same. My the way I enacted some of my philosophy has definitely changed over the years.
Yeah.
I started head coaching at 25, and I was a pretty explosive coach as far as, and I probably still at times am. You have to evolve because kids change.
Mm-hmm.
Their goals don't change, but how the society changes and how they bring people to how kids are brought up makes a huge difference in how you can coach them in a wrestling room. And the thing is, when you're with these guys that long, you almost become a surrogate parent to them. Mm-hmm. And if they trust in you, you can really, I'm going to say, criticize the wrestling, but and at the same time they know that you're there for them.
Right.
You're just not because you don't like something. It's and I think that's where a lot of growth comes from the kids, and they believe in themselves, and you got to get them to do that. But if you don't have parents that have formed those values early, mm-hmm. you're not going to be able to do much without that unless it's a rare situation. So the kids coming into our programs, luckily I've had the opportunity to work with really great parents along the way, from Plano all the way to St. Charles and then through to Neuqua, and then when you have that type of parent group, you know what type of kid you're going to get. Mm-hmm. There's some could be blue collar, some could be white collar families, but they're all families that want success, and they want their kids to work for success.
Yeah. Now, 20 years at Neuqua too.
20,
so you've seen this school. You've actually seen the school grow up from the infancy stage to now. Right. How amazing has that been to see that evolution?
I'm thinking, man, I walk in this big building, and there was 950 kids, maybe at the most. I'm thinking, this is awesome, I came from a school from St. Charles, and we had like 2,500 kids, and then all of a sudden that 950 becomes 1,500, then 2,000, and 2,500, and then 3,000, and up to 4,700. And those days are really, really tough on the buildings themselves, but because there's so many kids in the hallways, you really had to become. People were very polite to each other. Mm-hmm. They knew they were going to knock into each other. They knew they were going to have a tough time getting to class because of some of the crowded hallways. We had to designate certain stairwells one way up or one way down because we couldn't get the kids to the classes upstairs on time based on our passing period. But this school's the climate has been so consistent throughout the 20 years I've been here. Mm-hmm. And it's all about, we want kids to feel part of this big school, but to break it down, so there's always, we have a lot of things going on. Our athletics, our music, our media class, mm-hmm. It's our science Olympiads. Mm-hmm. It's all these things are just there for the kids, and not everybody. Not everybody crosses over and does things, but there's so many things for kids to do here that they get involved in the school. Mm-hmm. And if you're not involved, then that's because you don't want to be involved. And that's a choice the kids make. But the kids that are involved, I think, have so much more leaving this school and are ready for society. And we are such a diverse school. Mm-hmm. with nationalities, it's awesome that these kids get the chance to see that, as well as the special ed students and multi-need students that they grow up with, in this district, which is it's a unique opportunity that I had to come over here. Not that I knew what I was getting into, but it was pretty good stuff.
Now, you've seen that aspect because as a dean, you get not just the athletics, but also the educational side and the individual student aspect of it as well. Have you found that the pairing of those two has been beneficial to both?
As far as the coaching and the deans?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I've become if people believe this, I've become a better dean because of my coaching.
Really?
I've become a better coach because of my dean. How I look at certain situations and how everybody is treated fairly, but not equally. Mm-hmm. Everything's case by case. You have to realize that not every person is going to be a robotic in their ways, and you're just going to do whatever you say, and which you would like because you think you're doing a pretty good job, but that's not the way the world is anymore. And I just talked the last couple of years, and I heard this at a FCA clinic, and the guy Heath Esslinger from Tennessee Chattanooga said, "You don't find blind obedience anymore as much as you think you have, and you have to develop that in your team to a certain degree, but you also have to realize that kids are more inquisitive than they ever were, and because of the club stuff the club wrestling that they're doing right now, and the extra time they put into any sport, they become more knowledgeable about the sport, so they're going to have more questions, and then you have to be able to develop that single leg into a single leg takedown. That single leg takedown's got to be developed into a finish. And if you can't, you can get a single leg, but now you got to finish a takedown, and that's where the questions come from. You have to be able to develop that wrestler to be able to counter something and reattack or scramble into a situation that you never know what's going to happen, except that the guy with the higher head wins.
Now, you've been through this process for almost 40 years, 4 decades. Yeah. And now it's coming to an end. So your final season just finished up. Have you reflected quite yet?
You know what? I'm starting to, and I had to get some stats for myself because 39 years is a long time. I don't have unless I have it written down. Sometimes I don't remember it. That's my wife. But and as I was looking back through the books, I had to get numbers, some data for some ceremonies and that. And I started seeing names that back from Plano, St. Charles, and Neuqua, and you start thinking back as to what those kids were all about. Mm-hmm. And now I'm old enough to see my wrestlers have kids, and that's where that's where it becomes reality hits. Mm-hmm. What impact you've had on kids over the years, and hopefully it's not all good. I'm not saying because not everything's perfect. Believe me, I've had my detractors, but at the same time, I think that growing up in a family of 14, you've got to make room for others, mm-hmm. and my parents were very good about loving us all, and we always say, I'm your favorite, right, Mom? You're my favorite today because I'm with you right now. That's the way it is. You got other people that you got to step aside for. But I think that in that regard, my coaching style it's always been aggressive. Ask the referees, but it's been to the point where it's not about me. It's about the success that we want to have our kids develop.
That family mentality, I'm sure, is a part of it as well. Do you almost see the kids that you used to coach that have now become men and fathers and people that are out in society? Do you almost feel like that's the most special part of coaching? Is seeing that process over time?
Yes. You don't think like that getting into coaching. You don't mm-hmm. think like that when you're 25 or whatever. Because I started coaching at 22 as a graduate assistant at Eastern Illinois, then went to Baltimore for a couple of years and was a volunteer coach, and then came back to Illinois. And so the kids that I've seen develop into young men now older men, I mean, there's kids that are 50 years old that I've coached, so that's how old I am. But and I'm going to say this. When I had that retirement ceremony on January 20th, it was like, geez, there's a lot of people that you affected. Now I'm kind of choked up, but it felt pretty good that you were a positive force. And I didn't think this was going to happen, but anyway, catch my breath. There's a positive force that you put out there, not only because of you, but because of everybody that you developed and were willing to work with.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of coaches, when they get into it, and you mentioned this, it's about technique. It's about how to beat your opponent. And over time, you develop that understanding that what you're doing is not just teaching them how to be better wrestlers, but better people. And did you get the sense of that during that retirement party?
No question, yeah. Yep. That was a pretty special night that I'll never forget that. I think that those people, and you don't know who you affect. And like I said, I've had my detractors, but when I can see the amount of people that took the time to come and see me, it's pretty powerful.
That's what 40 years will do.
Probably, yeah.
Now, on a lighter side, I want to ask you this question. Your favorite way to take somebody down on the mat? What is the one way that gets you the most pumped up as a coach to see somebody take?
I think a straight heavy or a power double or head outside double that you take them down to the mat and you put a Turk in and you finish off with back points, and sometimes you get the pin, but just that's the dominance of going from your feet to the back and scoring points, and now you have a 5-point lead, or maybe you're coming back on a 5-point deficit, but that's a lot to that, because you're not looking for one thing, you're looking for as much as you can get.
Yeah, it's lightning quick too.
Right, exactly.
Last thing I want to get to is, you're not quite there yet, but post-retirement, what plans do you have in store?
Believe it or not, I want to travel to see some the elite wrestling matches in the Big Ten or collegiate wrestling. I'd like to go to one Olympics, but at the same, and I also want to. I consider myself a little bit of a woodworker. I'll know that pretty soon. I've done a lot of construction jobs dealing with carpentry, but I want to get into some woodworking where I'll have some projects, and like you were talking earlier, maybe I can be one of your sponsors.
Well,
mixed woodworking, I don't know, but I'm looking forward to just sitting back and trying to make some things that can relax me.
Coach, thanks for sitting down. We appreciate it.
You're awesome. You guys have been awesome for 20 years since I've been here, and we've had some really good times in your studio, so I thank you guys for your coverage.
Hey, we've always enjoyed it as well. Thank you so much.
You got it.